Hello and welcome another Facebook Live. Thank you for joining on the call tonight, Monday night, almost the end of June, and I decided to do Facebook Live again tonight because I just felt like the energy has shifted yet again and it's probably time for us to come together. So as you join on the call, please say a hi in the chat box. I'll wait for a few more people to join. I like to start these calls by simply asking, how are you? It's been quite a year and we're only halfway through. So how are you? How have you been the last few weeks? It's been a few weeks since I've done one of these Facebook Lives. So how are you finding the energy at the moment? And how has life been treating you? Hi Margaret, thanks for saying hello. As you come on the call, please say hi in the chat box so I know who's joining the call. So how have you been feeling? Things are changing. Every week it's a different landscape. The last few weeks there's been a lot of social unrest around the globe with some of the racial issues that have been happening and the protests that have been happening around the world that are obviously reflecting a long time of history of inequality and imbalance around the globe, not just in America, but here in Australia and across pretty much every continent. We've got the COVID situation, which in some places is settling down as things are opening up. In other places, it's kind of piping back up again in the US, and here in Victoria, we've got a bit of pop-up happening with more cases, and there's just so much change. Political unrest, climate change is resurfacing as an issue that didn't get paid much attention over the last 3 or 4 months, but it hasn't gone away, obviously. So there's a lot happening around our globe. It's very busy, a lot of change happening, a lot of unrest. And I really figured with tonight we can look at, what our part is within that change, because the change is going on. It's not going to go back to a normal. The normal wasn't balanced. There is no normal for us to go back to. So it's really about what we're moving forward with and how we're going to stand in our own energy, in our peace within that whole equation. Hi Kath, hi Meg, hi Niti, lovely to see you. Kath has said she's feeling better than a few weeks ago, still unsure of what's ahead. If you are sure of what's ahead, Kath, then I'd say, wow, fantastic. Please let us all in on it. I'm certainly unsure of what's ahead other than change. That's about the only thing I'm certain of. There is change ahead. So how has everyone else been finding the last few weeks? How are you feeling in your energy? I've been finding it very odd, starting to go out. I've been getting to the gym, doing gym classes and things, and there's this kind of strange energy where we're still keeping physical distance but not quite sure why. And then in Victoria there's a bit of a blip again, so it is a very unusual energy. We're not like New Zealand where there's a bubble and there's no cases and everyone perhaps can hop back into their normal routines. We're still needing to be mindful, and obviously there's a lot of change going on in terms of the economy and what's happening with government support and businesses that are having to work their way through this period. So it's a very interesting time. Hi Tony, thanks for joining. So anyone else like to comment on how you're feeling at the moment, how it's been for you individually, any challenges that have been coming up? The topic for tonight is actually self-love, and what does that have to do with all the global changes that are happening at the moment? So we're going to be diving into that as a topic, but I did want to check in with how you're doing, and if you've joined the call live, please say hi in the chat box. If you're watching this recording afterwards, then by all means drop in a comment as well. Just let me know how you're going. If anyone needs any assistance, then I'm here. So no comments other than Kath being a bit better than a few weeks ago. So One of the things that has really struck me about the changes that are going on the planet at the moment is a lot of it is to do with fear. Obviously, the COVID virus has brought up a lot of fear in our world, but a lot of it is to do with separation and division. And not just racially, but the way we're separated in terms of our separation from our natural environment and climate issues, the way we're separated from each other in our living spaces, and the way we kind of control our lives and live in these little controlled pockets, which are now at threat from the virus being spread and moving around. There's still even a bit of fear coming up around the uncertainty in terms of how COVID actually spreads. Perhaps there's more that we don't know about it than we do. Hi, Margaret. And two Margarets, Margrit and Margaret, who's back in Sydney. So it has really struck me that, there's a lot of fear and separation. And then, of course, what is that reflecting, not just in the external world in terms of how we relate to each other, but what is it reflecting in our internal world and how we relate to ourselves? And I was prompted to think about the Serenity Prayer, actually. You might be familiar with the Serenity Prayer. It's been popularized for quite a long time now. And I just thought I'd read it out to you because it's interesting in the context of what's going on at the moment. Just before I do, Margaret has added a comment, fear of COVID from having been in Melbourne. Yep, put a dampener on lovely week away in Melbourne. I was fortunate enough to catch up with Margaret when she was down in Melbourne, and I have to say it was the highlight of my week and something I was very thankful for. But yes, it does put a dampener on things. I have had several messages from my mum being very concerned. Are you in, the high-risk area in Melbourne? No, I'm not, if anyone's concerned about me. But obviously there are people that are living in the pockets that are flaring up at the moment, so we send out our best wishes there. So the Serenity Prayer, it was actually written in 1932 by an American theologian called, I hope I get the pronunciation correct, forgive me if I don't, Reinhold Niebuhr. And it's commonly quoted as, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, this is a beautiful prayer. I've used it often, referred to it often. But tonight when I went to just print off a copy of it, I happened to go to the Wikipedia page and it had a bit of history about the prayer. And it said that the prayer originally was written slightly differently. It actually asked for the courage first, and specifically for changing things that must be changed, not things that simply can be changed. So the original prayer actually reads, Father, give us courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. Give us the courage to change what must be altered, the serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. That's a really different prayer to the one that has been popularized. So the first line, give us the courage to change what must be altered. We're all really being called to do that at the moment with social change. Before COVID happened, it was climate change, a lot of inequality in society. With COVID, we've all had to have the courage to change what must be altered in terms of our own behavior, and with a lot of the protests going on around the world with the racial inequalities that have existed for a very long time that are still not changing, we all need to have the courage to change what must be altered, what can no longer be sustained. So that's really a call to step up, to see what needs changing, and to step up, to take personal responsibility. So that's a very different stance. And the second line, the serenity to accept what cannot be helped. Not what cannot be changed, but what cannot be helped. So the acceptance of what cannot be helped puts a different light on things like ignorance. We can educate ourselves, we can educate each other. And that changes the things that previously could not be helped. We can't help ignorance of the past, it's already happened. But we can educate ourselves now to help what happens in the future. So it's a really different stance on it. And the insight, the wisdom to know the one from the other. So if you take those first two sections, the courage to change what must be altered and the serenity to accept what cannot be helped. Really, the only thing that cannot be altered is the past, and everything that can be helped is the future. So this Serenity Prayer, whilst it's a nice thing that puts us at peace internally and gives us a little bit of power to realize that we do have the power to create change in our life, when you look at it in the context of everything that's going on in the planet at the moment, it actually puts a very different spin on things. It lands responsibility right back in our lap, and it says we need to have the wisdom of discernment to know what can be helped, what can be changed. And I think one thing as I was contemplating about this call tonight was that change is happening. It's not even debatable as to whether or not change will happen. It's happening. The question is, to what extent do we step in and play our part within it? And that's where this Serenity Prayer and the original version of it might actually change your perspective on things. So any thoughts or comments on that? I'll just catch up with some comments here in the chat box. Meg has said the world is being different, has given me scope to change beyond what was my normal and to think what are the possibilities. Beautiful. Hi George, thanks for joining. And Mary Lou, the rushes of anger I was having a few weeks back have subsided. While not pleasant, it was very grounding. Now there's less fear, feeling more stable within, and less judgy. Yeah, so judgy or judgment. And Mary Lou has said, I like the original version. Can you write that up alongside this Facebook Live for reference? I will. So judgment really, is at the essence of what's going on at the moment. Where are we judging? Where are we separating? Because at the heart of all separation is judgment. And what I like about this original version of the Serenity Prayer is that it really brings discernment into it, the wisdom of discernment, to look at what can't be helped from the past and to discern what can we change in the future, or what role can we take in actually changing it. And the courage to change what must be altered. And I think that's what we're all being called on at the moment. And when we can step into that with heartfelt love and acceptance rather than fear or resentment or judgment, and actually say, okay, things need to change. Our views towards each other need to change. Our views towards the environment need to change. Our views towards economic inequality needs to change. Our views towards global issues needs to change. What are we going to do about it? Then it's a call to action. The Serenity Prayer is not so much a calming prayer as it is a call to action. So I found that really interesting and inspiring. And I'd love to hear any thoughts that you have if you're live on the call. And so how does that link to the issue of, or the element of self-love? Because that's what I said this conversation tonight would be about. So I'm going to hand over to you guys. Can you see the connection there in terms of the changes going on in the world, the aspect of separation and division, this Serenity Prayer call to take responsibility, and how that actually relates perhaps to self-love, how those things are connected. Niti has said, my work world is changing and all I can do is go with the flow, or remember to go with the flow. Yep, so I'm just catching up on some comments here. So how does that relate to self-love? And I think Mary Lou touched on it when she said she's feeling less judgy or judgmental, because really self-love is about acceptance. Sometimes we think about self-love as being this romantic, oh, I love myself, I'm I'm so wonderful, everything about me is absolutely fantastic. But actually at the heart of self-love is self-acceptance. When we're in that place of self-acceptance, then we're unconditional in our relationship with ourselves and we're not judging ourselves. So how might us moving into a more less judgmental and more self-accepting relationship with ourselves actually relate to the ripple effect we're having in the world in terms of the social change that's going on? So Niti has said self-love is the conduit to go with the flow. Yeah, absolutely. Self-love, acceptance enables us to go with the flow, to trust that what is happening for the highest good, and to go with the flow of that river of energy, if you like, and to see where it takes us, and to also be paddling with that river of energy, which at the moment is the river of change. Everything is changing. To go with that flow, to accept it's happening, accept change is happening on the planet, to go with the flow of that change and to say, okay, what's my role within it? What kind of strokes am I doing as I'm flowing along the river and I'm allowing the river to carry me and to carry the change that's happening globally or around me locally? And what's my role within it? What kind of strokes do I want to do? Do I want to backpedal and be resisting the flow? Or do I want to flow with it and actually add to the energy in a way that's positive and constructive by accepting myself first and foremost, as well as my neighbor and the person across the fence from me or across the other side of the world, or the person that might look different or sound different or behave different. Hi, Haley. So Haley has said, I've been thinking a lot about how I judge myself and how I judge others. Spot on. Really wanting to reflect on both. As a compassionate person, often I feel like I can miss how I might be judging. Hi, Joe. And Kath has said love, insight, rather than wisdom. That's reference to the original prayer. The insight to know the one from the other, rather than the wisdom to know the difference, the insight. It's a deeper level of knowing. Insight is a deeper level of knowing and understanding of interconnections. So we're all touching on different elements, interconnections. We're all interconnected. None of us are separate. I might see you as being different, but we're essentially the same. We all live in a physical body. We all have the same basic fundamental needs for safety and security and love and belonging. We all are here with a purpose, with a contribution to make, with some significance to being here. We all have value. We all have equal worth as human beings. We're all divine beings of light. So the interconnected nature of everything means we're actually no different. And we're all here to move beyond the pattern of judging ourselves, to actually be able to accept ourselves and therefore be able to accept others, to lead from that compassionate heart, as Haley has referred to. Meg has said, I was just writing about this in my journal. Perfect timing. My judgment on myself and wanting to change my patterns. Amazing timing. Oh dear, I'm just echoing your words, Meg. Yeah. So changing our own patterns, if change is going to happen, it starts with us. And the world is one big gigantic mirror of what our own internal patterns are. So where might we be separating from other people? Where might that be a reflection of where we're separating from ourselves? And so that's why I was prompted to talk to self-love tonight. That perhaps by healing our relationship with ourselves, we will then heal our relationship with each other and the planet that we live on. Because when I separate from myself, when I judge myself, when I'm harsh on myself, when I'm beating myself up, when I'm putting myself down, or when I'm inflating myself to make myself feel better over other people because I'm actually not feeling strong within myself, then I'm not only separating within myself, but I'm separating from other people. So it's all, as Kath has said, all interconnected. So any other thoughts on it before we go in and do a nice meditation to help shift this energy, and perhaps use the original Serenity Prayer to stand in our light and our truth and our power to be a positive conduit of change at the moment in this call to action. It really is, at the moment, I feel the changes are really asking us to return to a state of wholeness. Wholeness within ourselves and our relationship with ourselves. Wholeness in our relationship with the people around us, with our communities, with our environment, with the world as a whole, and wholeness within the human race, to shift from simply being individuals to being a whole people, because we are all interconnected and we are all brothers and sisters. We all are all part of the one shared humanity. So any other comments, any other reflections, any other divine timing? So perhaps what we might do now is go into a meditation, and I might just pop in some questions during the meditation for us to reflect upon that might just help bring light to our own healing, that then brings light to our healing in the external world. Hi Robin, thank you for joining. Mary Lou has added, when I see how to change what needs to be changed externally with the world, I feel a bit hopeless, worthless, and not like I am making a difference. I guess letting go of what I can't control would help make it easier to access self-love, but that feels like a cop-out. Yeah, that's a really great point, Mary Lou. Yesterday I saw this fantastic compilation of images on Facebook, and I shared it, but I then took it down for a specific reason. But the compilation of photos were absolutely inspiring in terms of people in situations that totally restored my faith in humanity. There were beautiful moments that people had captured where people were doing spontaneous, random acts of generosity of spirit. One of them was a man that got on a bus. He happened to be Muslim. It was mentioned in the comment just purely because it was looking at racial issues. And he sat next to another man on the bus who had no shoes on and was perhaps doing it tough. And so the Muslim man immediately took off his shoes and his socks, and he gave them to the man that he'd sat beside on the bus. He said, "Don't worry, I don't have far to walk." And then he got off the bus barefoot, and there was a photo that captured him barefoot, and the guy on the bus putting on the shoes and socks. It was an absolutely beautiful moment of sharing and generosity. There's another moment of a man who was sitting on a train, and he was playing a game on his phone, and he noticed the young child sitting beside him was kind of like peering over his shoulder to watch the game, and he just spontaneously said, "Would you like to play?" and handed his phone over to the child beside him to play the game for the next half hour as they travelled on their journey. There was so many moments, I wish I could remember them all, that were just random acts of pure generosity. People paying for things that when other people couldn't afford them, when people had forgotten their credit card, spontaneously giving things that they had that they saw someone else was more in need. So it was really even a beautiful post of a child that had fallen onto a railway, and people just immediately diving in and helping the child off the railway. So it was filled with like photo after photo after photo after photo after photo of people doing random acts of generosity. I won't even say kindness, I'd say generosity of spirit, generosity of humanity, not thinking about themselves, but thinking about other. And so to Mary Lou, your comment about feeling despondent about the world and seeing what needs changing, seeing this raft of posts last night absolutely restored my faith that we all have within us the capacity to do something, no matter how little or how great, that has a positive impact on someone else, and that energy flows on. So at the start of the year, when I started doing these Facebook Lives, I was talking about the ripple effect. What kind of ripple effect do you want to have? And seeing these images really inspired me to take much more ownership of the ripple effect I can have, to actually look for opportunities to help people, to see other people rather than walk around in my own bubble of ignorance, or my own bubble of keeping to myself, or my own bubble of even keeping safe, to look for opportunities to help people, to make a difference, to pass that energy on, to touch people's lives, to touch people's hearts, that actually the energy I'm rippling out carries forward in a way that awakens hearts, touches people, uses our interconnectedness in a positive way. So I totally hear what you're saying, Mary Lou, and I've felt that way myself. And now I'm saying, actually, I have the power to do a lot more in little ways that are very meaningful and very effective in changing the energy in the world. And I think that's to the Serenity Prayer. Give us the courage to change what must be altered. Perhaps the first thing that must be altered is for us to stop focusing on ourselves and all the ways that we judge ourselves and keep ourselves protected in our own bubble and think about ourselves and keeping ourselves safe, and actually to open our bubble, energetically speaking, to see other people and to see the difficulties, to see the challenges, and to want to not interfere, but to want to assist where assistance would be welcomed. So, and having the insight to discern where we're helping an old lady across the street who doesn't want to be helped, or where we're asking someone, would you like some assistance, and offering that regardless of the answer, not taking offense at it. But if someone would like that assistance, then we all have a role to play. There's something that we can all do. Hi Simone, thank you for joining. So that's a bit of an aside, but I just remembered what a positive effect it had on me, seeing all of these images of people doing these acts of kindness. The reason why I didn't share the post was actually, it came from a page which, whilst it was a very important cause to do with racial equality, there was a lot of negative aggression on the page that it came from, and I didn't want to be sharing that energy, and I was concerned that if people clicked on the link, they wouldn't just see this incredible array of photos of generosity of spirit, but people might be in the face of some really aggressive energy, so I didn't share it. But I'm hoping I can actually find it and share in a different way in the future. So know that there's always something we can do, and we're not powerless, and it's the little things that matter just as much as the big things. Christine has said, a simple smile says a million words, and I love to comment on the beauty of pregnant women, who I know oftentimes feel the opposite. That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm laughing there because I remember one of my own pregnancies, and I had an interesting comment from a stranger that definitely made me feel the opposite. But that's another aside. So, unless there are any other comments, let's get into a lovely meditation, and I'll bring in the original Serenity Prayer at the end. So let us close our eyes and just take a few slow, deep breaths, really connecting with ourselves, bringing our awareness back into this moment, into our heart, into our beingness. Connecting with the heavens above us and the planet below us, as we call in our light into our heart space, and we connect in at the heart of our being. And as we do, just surrounding ourselves in a bubble of white light, that our energy field is sealed and whole, filled with universal loving energy. And then around that bubble of white light, surrounding yourself in a circle of blue flame, that you are safe and protected, and you are whole and complete wherever you go. That actually in your wholeness, nothing can harm you. And in the light that is in your heart, you have everything to give within you, everything that you're here to share. So I would invite you to breathe into your heart space and imagine a beautiful, warming light being in the center of your heart. Just imagine breathing into that warming energy in your heart space, in your heart chakra. With each breath, imagine that light gently growing and expanding. That as you inhale, that light expands, and as you exhale, that light expands even further, filling you with a beautiful, warming glow, radiating out from the center of your heart chakra, just gently filling that area of your body. And as you feel this beautiful, warm, loving light within the center of your heart, expanding and growing and filling your being, just reflect on a couple of questions. In what ways might I sometimes separate from myself? In what ways might I sometimes judge myself? In what ways might I sometimes be fearful in the way I see myself? And then imagine breathing that beautiful, warming heart light into all of those energies, allowing it to bring beautiful, loving acceptance to all those aspects of ourself that we might separate from, that we might judge, that we might even be fearful of. Imagine that beautiful, warm, loving light spreading out to all those aspects or areas of ourself, bringing healing and the energy of loving acceptance to these areas, that they may simply melt away and dissolve as we embrace all of who we are and how we are. In the knowing that what we are, at the heart of our being, is a truly divine, magnificent light. Divine being that is already whole and complete and has everything within it that we could ever possibly need for us to fulfill our reason for being here. And the contribution that we're here to make within ourself and our life and the world around us at this point in time. In the knowing that if we're here during this time of immense change, it's probably because we're here to be part of the change. And that we are more powerful than we might realize. That we have a role to play. So I'm just going to read the original Serenity Prayer. God, Father, Mother, Spirit, give us the courage to change what must be altered. The serenity to accept what cannot be helped. And the insight to know the one from the other. Just breathing that warm, loving energy into that intent to have the courage to change what really needs to be altered. Breathe light into that. And the serenity to accept what cannot be helped. Breathe light into that. We cannot help the past. Breathe light into all that needs releasing. We have the courage to change what needs to be altered going forward. And the insight to know the difference. Breathing light in your heart space into that insight to be able to discern in your heart space what needs to be changed, what must be altered, and what cannot be helped, what needs to be accepted. And then imagine breathing that warm, loving, accepting energy out beyond your heart space, beyond your body, and imagine just sending a beautiful ripple of that energy out into the world. Together, that loving acceptance, that healing of self, and that accepting of what is, that energy is rippling out across the planet for all to receive, should they be open to it. Just offering that serenity prayer to self and to other and to the world of which we are all part and here to play our part. And imagine hearts across the planet being touched by that energy if they're open to receiving it. It's a beautiful, gentle offering of loving energy. And then whenever you feel ready, just bring that energy back into your heart space, bringing that light in within you, that you take that energy with you throughout the rest of your day, your evening, your week, the coming weeks ahead, as long as it feels appropriate for you. And then take a couple of slow, deep breaths, giving your fingers and toes a bit of a wriggle, having a bit of a stretch. And just slowly opening your eyes whenever you feel ready. And as you open your eyes and give your fingers a bit of a wriggle, if you'd like to wriggle them in the chat box and type what that was like for you, if there was anything that came to you during that process, that shared experience. Thank you to Paul and Anna for your comment. You'll be watching the replay. Lovely to have you guys watch it. And yes, to Tony, I will publish the original version on my Facebook page because I think it's quite significant. So how was that for you? There might be a bit of a lag in the comments. How was that process for you? And did anything come up with those questions in terms of how you might separate from yourself or judge yourself or have fears within yourself? Was there anything that came up there that perhaps you'd like to share, or was a bit of a surprise? Thank you for the little bubbles coming up. For me personally, I found that it felt very healing, and that even simply doing that process ourselves, and of course these recordings are here on my Facebook page for you to watch at any time, to replay. That process is there now for you. It will be shortly for you to use at any time. Just simply using a process like that, bringing that healing energy in, lighting up our heart with effectively the light that is who we are, our soul, our spirit, our higher self, and sending a ripple of that energy out. That in itself, that beingness and that sharing of that energy is very powerful. So to Mary Lou's comment, and anyone else that might get down at times with things that are going on the planet, and a lot of the things that we see in the media can be very disheartening. This is a way of reactivating your heart energy, re-enlivening it, and bringing back that heart of our shared humanity, because that's really the change that's being required of us. We have lost touch with our shared humanity and our interconnectedness, and we're on a journey to reconnect with it and remember it. So Kath has said very calming and loving. Many thanks, you're welcome. Christine, I felt very peaceful. Thank you to you also, Christine. So is there anything else that you would like to add, or any questions you have about this topic, or any difficulties that you're having at the moment that I might be able to assist with, or someone else on the call? We're all in this together. Someone else on the call might be able to share their experience that might be of assistance. Meg says she feels very grounded. Excellent. So if you're listening to this recording afterwards, or even if you're on the call live and you think of something afterwards that is connected with what we've been speaking about tonight that you'd like to mention, or anything else, please by all means add something in the chat box after this call finishes, after the video finishes, and I'll always get to see it. Tony has said self-acceptance and forgiveness are hard to do. Thanks for your process and support. Moving back to Lane Cove, see you sometime. Oh, very good. I'm in Melbourne at the moment, Tony, but I will be coming back to Sydney, so hopefully I'm going to catch up with people in Sydney. Coming back for a visit, not to move, but I will be heading up shortly across the border if they'll let me in. So yes, it will be lovely to catch up with family and friends in the not too distant future. So thank you very much for being on the call tonight, and I'm just going to read that original prayer one more time for you to take it with you into the evening, and then I will post it in the chat box straight away as soon as my fingers can type it. So Father, Mother, God, Spirit, give us the courage to change what must be altered, the serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. And as I read that again, each time I read it, it strikes me more and more. And as I read that again, it really strikes me as that Serenity Prayer is perhaps not so much a serenity prayer as it is a call to action. Give us the courage to change what must be altered. So on that note, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm just catching up on one more comment from Christine. I have great difficulty experiencing all the sadness around me. Yeah. So Christine, I guess the Serenity Prayer is the serenity component of that prayer is the serenity to accept what cannot be helped. And we cannot help that there is sadness around us. And this is something that, there's so many layers to, but even just recently I've come to realize I cannot stop the suffering in the world. I cannot stop the suffering of others. I cannot stop the suffering of the person who might be sitting right beside me. And at times I can't even stop my own suffering, but we can accept that it's okay. Suffering is part of our experience, and we are living in a dimension of duality. And so there is, wherever there is light, there is also dark. Wherever there is joy, there is also, on occasion, sadness. And when we can have the serenity to accept that can't necessarily be helped, but we do have the courage to change what must be altered or what can be altered, then we can say, okay, someone's suffering, let me be there with them. There's sadness, let me have compassion for the sadness that is around me, and then look at what little thing can I do to create change? To maybe simply be there with someone who is sad, and that's the greatest gift we can give. Or maybe there's something else we can do. We can ask them, is there anything I can do to help? So to not feel helpless in that. I think, Christine, to your comment, I have great difficulty experiencing all the sadness around me. It's not to join in the sadness, but it is to have compassion that sometimes things are sad, and then to have the insight to look at, is there anything here that I can help alter or that needs to be altered? Margaret has said, love the messages of acceptance and serenity. Great. Thank you, Kath, for your comment, and Margaret and Meg as well. So thank you all, and any other questions I will respond to them. But thank you so much for being here in the energy tonight, and I invite you to read the Serenity Prayer a few times and just see which words pop out at you and what it might inspire within you. So have a wonderful week. Mwah. Thank you for being here. And I probably won't be doing these weekly, but maybe fortnightly or every 3 or 4 weeks. So just keep an eye on the page and sign up to my newsletter if you're not already subscribed, and I'll let you know when upcoming Facebooks are going to be happening, Facebook Lives. So thank you. Have a beautiful week. Bye for now.